When you've completed description of your cores, you'll probably want to export those data. PSICAT can export the contents of each section as a visual diagram or as tabular data. First, we'll look at tabular data export. In the File menu, choose Export, Tabular Data, which will open a simple dialog. The first option, Sections, determines which section's data will be exported. You can choose either all sections or a single section. Excel is the only format available at present. Finally, you need to choose a destination file. Click the ellipse button here and choose a location and file name. I'll save mine on the desktop. I will call it Tabular Export. And then we'll click the Save button. We'll now see my destination file in this field here. And now when I click OK, if I remain at all sections, it will take all sections data and dump them into that Excel file, or I could just take a single section's worth of data and dump it into that Excel file. Whatever you choose, it will all go in the file you've specified here. So for starters, I will just choose my section 1H1 because it's the only one that has any data in it, and I will hit OK. And I see a tabular export.xls file pop up on my desktop. I will now go to Google Docs where I've pre-opened it because I don't have Excel. And you can see we have a spreadsheet here. There are 5 different sheets, one for each type of object. So we have our images, our sections, we have the units defined in that section, we have intervals defined in that section, and occurrences, also known as symbols. These sheets contain all the data you could possibly enter for those objects. For instance, we left group empty in both our in our units and our scheme, so there's nothing here. But all of our other information is there: the top and base depth, the name we gave it, the section it is part of, and our descriptions. The same is true for all the other types of objects. So that's what the tabular output looks like. Similarly, you can export a diagram by choosing File, Export, Diagram. Again, as in Export Tabular Data, you'll first have to choose a section or sections for which you want to export diagrams. Choosing each section will export a single diagram file for each section in the project. You can experiment with the range and per page options here, but we'll leave them as they are for now. You could also select a single section to export a diagram for. Render header and footer determines whether or not the column headers here appear on the top and bottom of the diagram. By default, it's only the top, not the bottom. Next, you'll need to choose a destination directory, also known as a folder, to export your diagram files to. All the files you export will be written to this directory. So mine is currently the desktop. I would rather make my own folder on the desktop, so I'm going to create a new folder called Diagram Exports. I'm going to hit Save, and now I see diagram exports there, so all the files I export here will be sent there. You can optionally specify a prefix for the exported file names, but by default, each exported diagrams file name matches the source section it came from. So for instance, if I exported GLAD4 HST03-1A-1H1, without specifying a prefix, that will be the name of the file, dot whatever extension I choose. So .pdf if I chose PDF, .bmp if I chose a bitmap, so on and so forth. So by default, it will use the section name. If I specified a prefix like Bob, then and exported this, I would end up with Bob before GLAD4, HST, etc., etc. So you have that option if you want it. But by default, it chooses the section name for the file name. So I'm not going to specify any prefix here, and I would like to export as PDF, although I have other choices. You can do PDF, SVG, those are the 2 vector formats. You also have image formats, PNG, JPEG, and bitmap. So once you're ready to go, all you have to do is click the export button. So I'm going to export the single section for which I've actually created some intervals, units, and symbols. Click the export button. The progress bar should give you a clue as to what's going on, and very quickly I've completed my export. If I go to the output directory, diagram exports, open, I can see I have a single file there named for the section, GLAD4, etc. And if I open this file, hopefully it will look good. There it is. You can see my section, my intervals, my symbols, the units I defined. The image is at reasonably high resolution, so if you zoom in, you should be able to see more detail as we do here. And that's what a single section diagram looks like. We'll look at the final export option, strat column, in a future tutorial.